Hi, my name's Tim Brody. I'm a chartered mediator, a qualified arbitrator, professional certified coach, certified executive coach, and a whole bunch of other little labels that people have applied to try to define me. The most important thing for today is that I'm Bill and Tony Bisak's son. For any of you who don't know who Tony Bisak is, well, she's my mom, and why, on the 22nd of December in 2015, she went into the hospital. She had really severe abdominal pain, and they did some quick tests on her, and they rushed her into an emergency operating room where they opened her up, and they found that why she had a cancer in 21 of the lymph nodes that they looked at, and they closed her up, and they set her on a path that turned out to be her final path, uh, where we lived for a short time with my mom being diagnosed as having cancer. What was really interesting, though, was that before that, mom had been working with a support group at her public library. And that support group was for people that were trying to find a better way to manage stress. My mom had always been a caregiver for the elderly people in her life, and had actually lived a lifetime full of stress, and she wanted to find a better way. So she met up with this group that I think was mostly women, and they turned out to be a wonderful group of humanity. And my mother was really enjoying herself going and meeting with these folks. Anyway, at one point, things took a rather odd step with this group, in that my mom, talking to me over the phone, said that she wanted to give a presentation to them. Now, this was odd because my mother had, to the best of my knowledge, never, ever stepped out front and wanted to be a public speaker. But she said that she wanted to talk about the importance of laughter. I have to tell you, the phone call just put the biggest smile ever on my face as I listened with growing pride in what my mom wanted to do for these wonderful folks. She said, "You know, Tim, we often talk about diet, and we talk about looking at the negative impact of stress, and the negative issues about stress. But," she said, "I wanna I wanna just talk about how important it is to laugh." And she said, "I go to the library, and I look around the shelves, and I get a bit overwhelmed. I don't know quite where to look. Can you help?" So, with a heart swelling in pride, I said, "Absolutely, Mom. In fact, I'll do more than just help. Tell you what I'll do. You give me one night, just give me tonight, and by tomorrow morning, I'll send you a paper on laughter, what its medical benefits are, and how we can use laughter to actually help us have a more positive, productive life." And so the next morning, I sent her down the paper that I wrote, and she was ready to go. Now, she was going to give that presentation in January of 2016, and unfortunately, she was in the hospital. So I asked my mom if she would like me to step forward and give that presentation for her, and she said absolutely. She was pleased that I was willing to do that, and of course, the day that I was supposed to do that for her in January, there was a terrible snowstorm, and the meeting had been canceled. Well, a lot's happened since January. My mother died on the 21st of March. Uh, cancer took her from us, and now I'm trying to do something to remember her and to help out that group of women that she cared so very much about. And what I'm trying to do is this presentation. So I can't be back in Hamilton for this, and this is the best I can do, and I hope you'll accept it. from the bottom of my heart and in memory of my mom, Helen Bisak. What I want to talk to you today isn't specifically about joy and laughter. It's a bit broader. I'm going to talk today about perspectives. How we can choose the perspective that will serve us the best in the situation that we're facing. I'm going to talk about what blocks us from choosing those positive, forward-moving perspectives. I'm going to talk about gremlins. Then I'm going to talk about the power of joy and laughter, and I'll try to put it all together in one package for you. So, let me first start by talking about perspectives. And as I talk about perspectives, what I want to do is share 3 stories with you that all revolve around the Christmas season and revolve around a choice of perspectives. The first story is one that I wrote. It's called Peanut Butter Christmas. And it took place in 1963 or 64. It really doesn't matter, I suppose. I was either 3 or 4 years old. My father had left us in 62. Actually, he dumped us. He moved my mother, my brother, and I from Wakefield, Quebec to a basement apartment in Hamilton with 2 months' rent and disappeared from our lives forever. Mother, being one of great fortitude, had refused to apply for welfare. She knocked on doors for work everywhere. At one time or another, she had driven trucks, worked in banks and at department stores. You know, I suppose by today's standards we were poor, but we never noticed. Anyway, Christmas Eve arrived, and Mother was determined to make it special for us. For months, she had cut corners and saved. She had walked to work in a somewhat questionable neighborhood rather than taking the bus. She'd cut back on portions at dinner time, mostly hers. Whatever it took, Mother did it, and slowly her pile of pocket change built. She planned on using her small savings to buy my brother and me our winter necessities, but that was null. As a treat, she was going to take us out on Christmas Eve for a special restaurant supper. You know, we talked about that for weeks. To children who could never remember actually eating out, the night sounded magical. At the time, Mother was working at a local department store, and being Christmas Eve, would work that night until closing. We napped in the afternoon in eager anticipation of the coming night. After work, our mother picked my brother and me up in a car that she borrowed from Uncle Bill at the time, and we set out on our adventure. I remember standing in the back of the car as we drove down darkened streets looking for that elusive open restaurant. What she didn't know was that on Christmas Eve the restaurants close about the same time as the stores do. As we continued to drive, my mother kept apologizing over and over to the 2 young children to whom she could not fulfill the promise she had so longingly meant to keep. On the way back home, she cried a lot. That night, before we got tucked into our beds, I recall sitting in a darkened kitchen while my mother made the only thing she could for us to eat that Christmas Eve: peanut butter sandwiches. Her crying hadn't stopped while she made the sandwiches, and I remember, even at that tender age, that I wanted to tell her that it was all right, that we were together, that she made the best sandwiches on earth, and that I loved her. We sat there that night and talked about Christmas and what it meant. We talked of family and love and birth of Christ and the sense of intimacy and affection. It was ingrained in me forever. I learned that night that Christmas should not ever become a time of promised gifts and anticipated riches, but of spontaneous and overflowing sentiment, a time to appreciate the small moments we're given for all their worth. I refused to accept the perspective that this had been a failure and there were reasons to cry. Instead, I saw a wonderful woman making wonderful sandwiches and having a wonderful experience with her sons. It was really just a matter of perspective. And then, a couple years later, I learned the notion about hope. You know, Hope grows on Hayden Street in Hamilton, Ontario. That's where we moved after we moved out of Wentworth Street, and I was living there with my mom, my brother, my grandmother, and Uncle Bill started coming around a lot then. At that time, my uncle was in the Marines, and it was the early 60s. See, I remember the 60s well. Not as a radical teen rejecting society and fighting against American-imposed aggression in a small Asian country, but as a small boy whose uncle was trying to survive as a serviceman on active duty. I remember that we used to watch the news nightly, and my grandmother and mother would be telling us that the scenes we were watching on television were a part of my uncle's daily life. In those days, my Uncle Ted was about the closest thing to a hero that I knew. He was a strong, brave, quiet-spoken man who was easy with his affection towards my brother and I. We would eagerly await his visits with the knowledge that we would be spoiled, cuddled, and loved by this man who seemed to take great joy in playing and wrestling with two small boys. Yet he didn't write from Vietnam. No, instead, he'd record his thoughts on reel-to-reel tape and send them home. Sometime around Christmas of '65, we received one of his tapes. We had anxiously been awaiting his return from Christmas holidays, and the tape didn't bring good news. Although the supply and transport ship was visible in the harbor, the shelling was too bad to transport personnel. Mail bags were delivered by helicopter, the route that his tape had taken out. In the background of the tape, we could hear the crump of explosions. He would be home, he explained, but the delay would probably not afford him the opportunity to be with us for Christmas. In our living room, we had a pine tree decorated with boy-made ornaments. It was in a metal bucket filled with gravel. Daily, my brother and I would studiously ensure that it was watered and cared for. As a family, though, we decided that our Christmas would come late that year. We would wait until my uncle's arrival to celebrate the season. My brother and I would continue with our arboretum duties. Just after the New Year, we received another tape from Uncle Ted. The season of peace had had no impact on his situation. The shelling had continued. Unfortunately, he explained, he would not be able to leave for a while, but he assured us that he would be on the first to leave when it was safe. Unaware that we awaited his arrival to celebrate Christmas, he said that he hoped our season had been bright and that Santa had been good to us. We, on the other hand, continued about our duties in great solemnity, watering and caring for the Christmas tree that had to last until our uncle's arrival. Santa would not come to our home until Uncle Ted did. Months went by. January slipped into February, and February into March, and on and on and on. We would receive updates from my uncle explaining his great sorrow that he had not yet been able to join us, but promising that he kept us in his thoughts and that he would soon be with us. Christmas, in his mind, was over. He went about his business, slogging through jungles and facing tragedy, fear, and horrors daily. We went about our business, watching the television in hopes of seeing him and taking care of our regular life and watering our Christmas tree. That following June, my uncle finally returned to us. The weather was warm and humid. To his surprise, the fully decorated Christmas tree, complete with gifts, sat in the living room. We laughed, cried, sang carols that Christmas. My family was close together, and Vietnam was far, far away. And the tree? Well, after over 6 months of constant watering and care, the tree had formed a root ball. We ceremoniously took it outside and planted it. It grew there for quite a few years until one year, City of Hamilton went and they chopped it down to increase the size of a parking lot. You know that song, They Paved Paradise. Point is, though, we could have that year been very sad. But we chose not to be. We chose to choose a different perspective. We chose that year to have our Christmas focus on hope. And we learned that hope is the feeling you have when a part of your heart is missing, when a loved one is beyond your reach, and an intimate thought is your only contact. We learned that hope can carry a person through difficult times. We learned that hope was a pine tree that grew on Hayden Street. It really was a matter of perspective. And then, I think, the most important story of them all. This was called The Gift Exchange. And I wrote this story in 2016, just this year. The gift exchange happened over this Christmas holiday. I was involved in the exchange, and it was an odd experience, and I didn't volunteer for it, nor was I even aware that I was in the middle of a gift exchange at the time. It just happened. You know, it started on the 20th of December. Heather, my wife, had planned a large family gathering at our home. We expected about 30 of her cousins and family to be at our house in the afternoon. My responsibility was to get those last-minute things that would be needed at the grocery store before the party started. Off to the store I went, where I threw myself into the flow of the holiday crowds, all out getting their own party and holiday needs fulfilled. You know, I'm not typically adverse to crowds. In fact, I really love the energy of folks around Christmas time, and my trip to get groceries didn't fail me. At the back of the store, though, amidst the throngs of people stocking up on party goods and superfluous stuff, there was this young couple. I guessed them to be in their early 20s. They were both looking intently into their cart, which was full of necessities, as they tried to figure out how much their meager pile of food was going to cost. "We're over 100, I heard the young fella say, to which his feminine counterpart replied that she thought they still had some room. Immediately, I knew that I wanted to buy their groceries. They seemed like just such a nice couple of kids who were just really trying to get by. However, as I went about filling my small cart with things Heather had sent me for, I'm ashamed to say that I sort of forgot about them. With my few items to purchase, I made my way to the front of the store. The lines of the few items checkout were long and slow moving. I didn't know at the time, but the universe was directing me. I found one of the cashiers, who should have been busy, to only have one lady at it. Her groceries were half checked, and so that line was my obvious choice. When I got to the line and put down my groceries, who should be in the next line but the young couple I'd so recently been enamored with? The young girl had all of her plastic cards out and was swiping them, trying to patch together the funds to pay their $127 grocery bill. The cashier was looking on with a frown as the cards were denied one after another. Well, you know, I was delighted to have the opportunity to jump in immediately and insert my own card to cover their bill. It really was a pleasure. As I keyed in my PIN, I remember hearing the young girl exclaim that she just didn't know what to say. I told her to say Merry Christmas. And then I asked them to be kind to each other. In return, I received a hug full of sincerity, humility, and gratitude. It was a wonderful gift. You know, that evening I posted the event on my Facebook page. I was astonished by the number of folks that thought I was the angel in the story. I thought that I wasn't probably telling the story right because they just weren't seeing it. I'd been the recipient of the gift. These two young kids, well, they were my angels. With their humility and grace, they had allowed me to participate in an event that saw me receiving their deepest gratitude, filling my heart with their wonderful gift. It really was a matter of perspective. Then 4 days later, I received a call from my brother in Ontario. Mother had gone into the hospital and undergone emergency surgery. The prognosis was not good, and I should come as quickly as I could. It was Christmas Eve, and within 4 hours I was on a flight to Toronto. I arrived too late in the night to see my mother immediately, so the next morning I went with my dad and my brother down to the hospital. Mom, she wasn't in great shape. As the day went by, we spoke about what had happened and what we would need in place for both my folks. It was both terrifying and incredibly sad. I felt lost and incapable of being the strong son and protector that my mom needed. In the late afternoon, a nurse came to my mother's room. I remember that I was sitting by the door, so by default, I was asked the question that she had to propose. Would you like to have some carolers in to sing some Christmas songs? She asked. Without hesitation, I said, yes, please. Into my mother's room came a family of 6 children and their mother. The eldest of the children had recently graduated from a university-level music program, and she led the family in a couple of carols, finishing with Silent Night. There wasn't a dry eye in the room as my family listened to the wonderful sounds of love and peace that filled the place. Later that evening, I sent the picture from my mom's hospital room out to my wife and a few close friends. One of them responded with the observation that the family must have felt the same way I had felt just days earlier when I was allowed to pay for the young couple's groceries. It was then that I realized that I, and in fact all of my family, had been someone's angel. You know, it really is a matter of perspective. There's so many perspectives you can take in a given situation. In this situation, I thought about it and I thought, we've often come to think of angels as protectors or givers. We put out our call for help and they satisfy our needs. Angels from that perspective are strong, resourceful, and powerful. But I just don't think we've got it quite right. I think angels give us the opportunity to be our most brilliant, kind, and loving selves. From that perspective, angels must be open, vulnerable, and have hearts filled with gratitude. Well, that's the way I think. I think that because I got to be an angel last Christmas when I was part of a gift exchange. And so, if in any situation, even the most dire, we are free to choose a perspective that fills our hearts and satisfies our most inner needs, what blocks us from choosing the perspective that's most positive and powerful for us? Well, I know the answer. The answer is gremlins. And I want to speak more about them now. First, let me introduce you to Rick Carson. Rick Carson's a really, really wonderful guy. He lives down in Texas. He's written some great books. A couple of them have really impacted my life strongly. He's written this book called Taming Your Gremlins. Then he wrote another book after called A Masterclass in Taming Your Gremlins. But this book on Taming Your Gremlins is really, really a powerful book with a strong message in it. In order to understand, though, we need to talk first about what are gremlins. Gremlins are that voice that you hear in your head now. Look at, everyone's got them. There's nothing wrong with you because you got them. But these voices in your head will tell you things that limit the joy and the capacity to find joy in your life. They'll say things like, sit down. That's not safe. They'll say, don't speak out. You're not clever enough. They'll say things like, oh, don't step forward. You're not pretty enough. These gremlins really do rob you of so much joy. Now, here's something that I want you to know about gremlins. They live in your mind. In fact, Rick calls them the monster of your mind. And they distract you by bringing up stories from your past and applying them to future things that you try to do. But now here's something that I want you to know. And we did a lot of talk around this over the past 3 months. The Dalai Lama, he said this. He said, there are only 2 days in the year that nothing can be done. One is called yesterday, and the other is called tomorrow. Today is the right day to love, believe, do, and mostly live. Now, here's the truth. The only thing that you have that's real is this moment. Now, this moment's gone, and all you have that's real is this moment. Do you know the past is something you can't change it? You might learn from it, and if you learn from it, that's great, because that's called growth, and that's life's lesson about experiences. But you can't change it. And the future, the future is something that you can dream of and you can be wistful for, but as Rick says, we so often focus on the future, and we talk about trying to get our little ducks in a row, but those little ducks, man, they're awfully hard to get all lined up. No siree. The past isn't something that you should focus on continually, nor is the future. The only thing that's real is this moment, right now. And the question, of course, is, what are you going to do with it? We have this moment. In this moment, Rick says that, and I really agree with him on this. Rick says that there's only one of three places that you can put your attention. In this moment, you can focus he calls it your spotlight of attention. You can focus that spotlight of attention, put your attention on the world around you, what's in your immediate space. Or you can focus on your body, what's going on from your skin in, your heart rate, the feeling of the clothes on your arms, the chills that you have. Or you can focus on your world of mind. And Rick says that the world of mind, this is where your gremlin lives. And he's right. In this moment, though, your gremlin will try to distract you and have you put the spotlight of awareness, focus your attention exclusively on your mind, in their playground. Hear their voice, follow their directions. But that's not true. You don't have to do that. This is about taking back your locus of power, your ability to make the decisions. As the poem Invictus says, you're the captain of this ship. And so Rick gave us some tools on how to take control again, to take the ability to change your perspective or do whatever you want in any moment. And he calls this a grounding and centering exercise. Now, with his permission, I want to take you through a guided meditation that will allow you or give you the tool to actually regain control of your spotlight of attention. So I want you to just kind of make yourself comfortable for a moment, and get really relaxed, and just sit back and give your eyes a rest. Just close your eyes for just a moment. And now let's play with focusing that spotlight of attention at your will. Let's play with that for just a moment. So get yourself comfortable, give those eyes a rest, kind of just let your eyelids close. And now let's play with focusing your spotlight of attention, your spotlight of awareness. So with your eyes closed, you're sitting in a relaxed position. Focus your spotlight of awareness on your breathing. Gently concentrate on a few breaths, noticing the movement of the air through your nose, down your trachea, and into your lungs. Pay very close attention to the movement of your abdomen as you breathe, taking care to allow your belly to round out as you inhale and allowing it to collapse inward as you exhale. Make certain to draw into your lungs all the air you want. There's no need to hyperventilate or to breathe heavily. Simply take in all the air you want, and when you exhale, exhale fully, blowing out the last bit of air. Breathe at a pace that's comfortable for you. Now allow my voice to become a soft focus in the background of your awareness. Your awareness may drift, may go to your mental processes, the world of your mind, or to a sound, the world that surrounds you, or to an itch or some other bodily sensation. It's natural for your awareness to wander. However, at the point where you become aware that this is happening, just consciously and gently bring the main focus of your awareness back to your breathing, tracing breaths in and out of your body. Controlling and guiding your awareness, it's a very gentle process. It's not something that you try to do as much as it's something that you allow yourself to do. Be gentle with yourself. This involves effort, but not strain. Do this for a moment or two. Go slowly and just relax. Now, with my voice as the soft focus in the background, direct your spotlight of awareness to the surface of your skin. Your skin is a receptor. It's an organ, and if you will attend to it, you'll be able to feel air on your skin, your clothes against your skin, and even perspiration and hair. Take a few moments to gently guide your awareness back and forth between your breathing and your skin. Not only is your skin a very sensitive receptor, it's also a boundary. It separates you from all other matter in the universe. While this may seem too obvious to mention, while keeping your breathing clear and noticing your skin, also notice your physical separateness from the world around you. Pay attention to your separateness from all else. Experience yourself as being encased by your skin. Pay special attention to the weight of your eyelids on your eyes, and for a few moments, practice directing your awareness from your eyelids to your breathing to the surface of your skin. Play with gently directing your awareness among these three areas. And when you're ready, with an awareness of your breathing and your skin, inhale slowly, once again, noticing your breath passing behind your heart and brushing gently against it. As you do so, in your mind say the words, "I'm taming." Then exhale fully, again feeling your breath pass lightly over the back of your heart. In your mind, say the words, "My gremlin." This is your gremlin taming mantra. Your breath is both a barometer and a regulator for your immediate experience. By attending to your breathing, you will begin to gain control of what you are feeling in the moment. And by doing so, you'll start to regain the power of choice in any given moment. Keep breathing, simply noticing your inhalations and exhalations, and continue with your "I'm taming my gremlin" mantra. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes. When you do, it will be as if you were peering out from within your body into a multi-dimensional movie called The World Around You. You'll probably be aware of your skin tingling and feeling very alive. This is a state of separateness called being centered. Now gently take your spotlight of awareness and direct it back to your eyelids. Feel their weight on your eyes. You've moved your spotlight from your breathing to your eyelids, and you're simply noticing them. There is no strain in this shift, just effort. Now let my voice move from the background to the foreground of your attention. You're shifting your spotlight from your body to the world around you. When you're ready, blink slowly, and as you lift your eyelids, consider that this world was created 5 seconds ago, complete with props, players, and history. Now this guided meditation is something that you can use to actually ground yourself in this moment. Rick has a theory that he calls the Zen theory of change, and I think it's a really important one to pay attention to. Rick says, I free myself not by trying to free myself, but by noticing how I imprison myself in the very moment in which I imprison myself. Think about that. I free myself not by trying to free myself. This isn't about trying to free yourself. This is simply about noticing how you imprison yourself in that very moment. The quicker you get at noticing how you imprison yourself, the quicker you get at saying, not today, not in this moment, and choosing the perspective that best serves you. So if we're able to tame our gremlins and free ourselves to choose a perspective, what's available to you in this moment? Well, my mom would say it's the ability to choose joy and laughter. And that's really what she wanted to pass on. Laughter is a byproduct of joy. Typically, we see joy expressed in the faces of our friends and family with smiles, sparkling eyes, and sometimes laughter. It can be spontaneous, it can be fleeting, it can be contagious, or it can be a long, rich, and satisfying experience that we can call on demand when we most need it. However, physiologically, it is an essential element of life. Research at the Mayo Clinic in 2011 showed that laughter has great short-term effects. When you start to laugh, it just doesn't lighten your load mentally, it actually induces physical changes in your body. Laughter can stimulate many organs, it can activate and relieve your stress response, it can soothe tension. It also has long-term effects as well. Laughter can improve your immune system, relieve pain, increase personal satisfaction, or improve your mood. So there is undoubtedly a biological benefit to laughter and joy. However, we often feel that the experience of laughter is something that comes over us and is beyond our own control. Well, further research has proven this to be untrue. We can gain the benefits of endorphins and serotonins at will. In the early 90s, an Indian medical doctor, Megan Kataria, worked as a registrar in a local hospital in Mumbai, and he also wrote papers for medical journals. In his scholarly work, he became interested in the growing body of scientific evidence, showing that laughter is extremely beneficial to mental and physical health. He decided that more laughter was needed to improve health and cope with the stress of modern living, and he started a quest to find ways that laughter could be prescribed to patients and people who needed it. In March of 1995, while writing an article, Laughter, the Best Medicine, for a health journal, he discovered many modern scientific studies which described in depth the many proven benefits of laughter on the human mind and body. In particular, Dr. Kataria was impressed by Dr. Norman Cousins' book, Anatomy of Illness, and the research work done by Dr. Lee Burke. Profoundly inspired and being a man of action, Dr. Kataria immediately decided to field test the impact of laughter on himself and others. Starting with just 5 people, at 7 a.m. on March 13, 1995, at a public park in his neighborhood in Mumbai, he launched the first Laughter Club. These 5 founding members laughed together in the park that day to the amusement of bystanders, and the small group quickly grew to more than 50 participants within a few days. In the initial meetings, they stood in a circle with one person in the center to tell a joke or funny story. Everybody enjoyed and felt good for the rest of the day. However, after 2 weeks, the Laughter Club hit a snag. The stock of good jokes and stories ran out, and negative, hurtful, and naughty jokes started to emerge. 2 offended participants complained that it would be better to discontinue the club than to continue with such jokes. Dr. Kataria asked the club members to give him just 1 day to develop a breakthrough that would resolve the crisis. That night, Dr. Kataria reviewed his research and finally found the answer he was looking for. Our body cannot differentiate between pretend and genuine laughter. Both produce the same happy chemistry. The next morning, he explained this to the group, and he asked them to try to act out laughter with him for 1 minute. Amid skepticism, they agreed to try. The results were amazing. For some, the make-believe laughter quickly turned into real laughter. It was contagious, and in no time others followed. Soon the group was laughing like never before. The hearty laughter that followed persisted for almost 10 minutes. This breakthrough was the birth of laughter yoga. Further studies at Harvard confirmed Dr. Kataria's findings. The mind cannot differentiate between fake laughter and the real deal. If you force your body to smile, or if you pretend that you've heard something funny, your mind will trigger the release of the endorphins and serotonins that are so beneficial to your health and well-being. Changing your group's focus from one of support through diversity to one of support in joy and laughter can have a profound effect on your mental and physical health. It really is that simple. Well, what happens when we combine all of these elements? The decision to change perspectives, the ability to tame our gremlins and focus on this moment, and the choice to have more joy and laughter in our life. Let me tell you about a trip my dad and I were taking down to the hospital to see Mom. We were driving down the Jolly Cut, and as we drove down, my dad said, "You know what, Tim, this just isn't fair. It was supposed to be me that went first, and I don't know how I'm going to survive without her." And I remember thinking, geez, we've got some gremlins to tame right now. And I looked over at Dad, and I said, "You know what, Dad? In this moment, there's just a dad and his son, and we're safe. In this moment, there's just love between a dad and a son. Let's just enjoy this moment and let worry come when we have a decision to make based on what's in that moment. Because this moment's pretty great, and I don't want it to pass without appreciating it." Even more difficult, and having a stronger impact, was the decision to see cancer itself from a different perspective. We chose to see cancer as a gift. Think about that. That's a tough one. But the reality is that so many folks who die from being hit by a truck or perhaps a heart attack, or who die suddenly, leave surrounding them a group of people who said, "If I only had one more moment." Cancer, for us, gave us that one more moment. It told us, your mother is finite. She's mortal. She's going to be leaving you soon. But I'm going to give you a bunch of moments. And what are you going to do with them? And so for us, as a family, we used those moments. And we enjoyed one last story. We enjoyed one last handhold. We enjoyed one last kiss. Now, I miss Mom. My dad misses her terribly. But cancer gave us a gift of having those experiences. And that's our story. It's been a challenging 3 months. Mom's gone. I'm sad that she's left us, as is the rest of my family. Along the way, though, we met some wonderful people full of compassion and love. My family's deepest thanks goes to the staff of St. Joseph's Hospital, and even more so to the wonderful people at Dr. Bob Kemp's Hospice Center. Their love, compassion, and expertise buoyed us in so many ways. In this moment, I'm choosing to feel the true love that this experience amplified. I want to close this experience by sharing the words of a very, very wise man. In his book, Taming Your Gremlin, Rick Carson said, "True love is not an emotion, but it underlies many emotions. True love is more fundamental than emotion. True love is not a wave. True love is the water. It provides you with more than gratifying stimulation. True love fulfills you." I need to close now. In doing so, I'd like to say, thanks, Mom. I'm fulfilled. I'll see you around.